Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about something that I've sort of been noticing it for a while, but wasn't sure whether it was just how intensive it was. So I did a little bit of online sort of legwork, which only took a few minutes actually. But what seemed to be the case was conservative organisations, whether they be news organisations, think tanks, or anyone on the conservative side of politics or commentary or anything like that at all, or say even an occupation that would be primarily all white male, there seems to be an unusual, if not astonishing, amount of activism where leftist, feminist, CRT type activists somehow get themselves hired into these organizations, and then after gathering information in what seems to be a planned, choreographed, scripted, organized move, then drop a lawsuit, really a nuisance lawsuit, on these organizations, and they're claiming sort of classic sort of street activism, that it's a misogynistic work environment. How the fuck you can launch a lawsuit over that is beyond me. That the work environment is unfriendly to women. That she overheard a anti-Semitic comment. She saw pictures that she believed were racist, and so on. So it's that sort of thing. Now, just having a look at one of these. Now, this right-wing organisation, they hired a Jewish lesbian with a history of activism. Now, why would they do that? Did they know that this person was an activist? Did they know that on a profile probability thing that her support or agreement with or acceptance of right-wing views would be minimal, not impossible, but minimal? Why would they hire somebody who's from, if you count the amount of sort of, then this woman was a former school teacher, Jewish lesbians in the activist, pro-globalist, anti-Christian white male brigade, then they're very prominent in that. So why would you hire somebody into a right-wing organisation? That could have been a sheer accident. I remember I was an organisation that hired a radical feminist activist, and it so happened that she only came in to do some temp work, and then somebody left, somebody quit, and then somebody, not me, said, well, you might as well stay, you're already here, and this sort of thing. And we only discovered later that she was an activist who'd put lawsuits pretty much on every employer that she'd ever been with for alleged misogyny, things like that. We didn't actually have a problem with it, as it turned out, but nonetheless. So why would a company hire that? Now, they wouldn't hire somebody like that knowing that, you wouldn't knowingly hire somebody like that, fully aware that their views and your views, or the views that you're, say, relaying in if you're a news program or a think tank or whatever, could be a media organisation, a magazine, newspaper, that if you're putting out certain views that this person is very, very unlikely to agree with, and the views that you have are not necessarily controversial, but under constant attack by the leftists and the pro-globalist activists and so on, you wouldn't hire someone who was very likely, on a very high probability to cause you trouble. Now, maybe they were absolutely expert at their job and you may overlook their activism, but I still think that would be unlikely. I certainly wouldn't. Now, maybe someone's got no political views and they're right in the sort of the main centre of mainstream, but they don't care one way or another, or they're there to do their job. what the views of the company may or may not be is not their business. They're there to do the work they're assigned and collect their paycheck. There are those sort of people. So I'm looking at one here where the Jewish lesbian former school teacher is hired into an organisation that has quite controversial views. Not controversial as in universally considered that, but by the left, the leftist globalist commentariat that are in the ascendant. They think these views are controversial and they're keen to shut them down. So this woman gets hired into this. So this very leftist activist with a very leftist activist profile gets hired. It doesn't work out. So she's claiming racism, misogyny, the usual stuff. Then she goes to an area of the United States. It's not anywhere near where she worked or anything like that to file a lawsuit in one of the most leftist activist legal precincts in the entire United States. Now, why would you pick that particular place to do your lawsuit? You just wouldn't do it. You'd do it in the local area, either where you live and or where you worked. You'd do it there. That would be the normal response. But instead, she makes a beeline to the most activist legal jurisdiction in the entire United States and gets an activist lawyer, very popular with the Democrats, was the darling of The Guardian and the New York Times and the Huffington Post and MSNBC, the darling of these leftist activist establishments, guest on The View and all this sort of thing. So, and that lawyer, again, many connections within the Democrat sort of NGO activist globalist machine, and so that lawyer is representing her. Now, the chances of in that jurisdiction, the chances of getting an activist judge that will find in her favour are very high, very high. This is a precinct or a district, a legal district that is fanatically committed, in an ideological way, fanatically committed to the destruction of all people who hold opposing views to the critical race theory and climate change and everything like that. So somehow she falls straight in with this crowd. Now, I just don't believe that was an accident. I don't believe she went to work at this place for any purpose other than setting up the situation for a lawsuit to give national embarrassment, to cost them a fuckload of money. And now I don't know who's paying her bills, but she's able to get top drawer lawyers almost straight away. She's not a big heavyweight player or anything like that. So it's not like she's a high profile person, but somehow she's able to go super high profile, super quick. And so clearly this is an arranged, choreographed thing. So that just the architecture of that situation. I then looked around and found there are actually many of these instances where these actors, nearly always women, these activist women, nearly always Jewish, majority lesbian, but not all, are able to get hired by these places and then are able to, or could they claim anyway, uncover these misogyny and so on, and then make a lawsuit out of it. I think, fuck, how would you do that? But there you go. In this world of legal activist ideology, this is now the new standard. Committing murder or arson or armed robbery. No, that is so yesterday. The issue here is, did you make a misogynistic comment? And that's a motherfucker, white supremacist, fascist, Nazi. You're going to prison for that. And so this is the new era of ideological law that we're in. So I think these people are being inserted purposefully. I don't know how their background could be that secret. Are they just not getting interviewed or something? Is there no background checks on some of these people? The positions they're going into aren't necessarily very senior, so maybe they don't. Maybe this, it's sort of a glorified receptionist type thing. So maybe they're not really being vetted. And if you look at the amount of junior staff in, say, the Trump administration when it came to office, the amount of junior staff that thought it was their job, that it was their mission to try and undermine his presidency and the policies and the processes, all this sort of thing, to try and undermine it. Go to the media, go to the media that was hostile to Trump and leak information and this sort of thing. And it was their right to do it. And yet there seem to be an unusual number of these people getting hired. Maybe in the flurry of a new administration, hiring people, but then someone had to hire them. And even people who were reasonably close to the inner sanctums of the Trump administration were also hiring some pretty flaky people who were very committed to undermining Trump and very committed to the globalist project. Somehow they were getting hired and put into key positions and being privy to information that, if leaked, would be injurious to the Trump administration. Look at the alternative here, how the Biden administration was able to tell wholesale, staggering amount of lies about Ukraine, where thousands of people were privy to that, to the reality there, knowing that lies are being told, and yet no one leaked it. I mean, in the end, somebody did, but nearly for a year, no one leaked this information to the media, which is astonishing. So when we look on one side, the discipline of secrecy on the globalist side is very high. They're not hiring people that disagree with their ideology, and they're carefully checking to make sure that all the people that are hired do agree. Whereas on the other side, that's not the case. On the conservative side, people are being hired for, well, I don't know why. It can't be skill in a lot of cases. So maybe the hiring procedure is just sloppy or casual, or maybe there's an assumption that in a more sane world that people would be grateful for the job and would follow directives and instructions given to them and not seek to be duplicitous and treacherous in selling out their employers, that sort of thing. But maybe that's silly to be considered as naive in these days of radical ideology permeating and seeping into everything. But I just wanted to mention this because I'm seeing more and more of it. I didn't realize quite how much of it there was. So these nuisance lawsuits are all over the place by what I think are pre-arranged. I think that the employee is in the right-wing organisation, and they're just giving information back to their handlers. Their handlers are either deciding, okay, the time is right, the time is now to do it, or waiting for a juicy morsel of information. But if you look at the amount of informants that the FBI puts into any right-wing organisation, that comes onto their radar, and their radar is pretty. I mean, they're not seeking to infiltrate and undermine the left-wing globalist organisations. Only on the side. If you look at the amount of people that are set in to infiltrate there, I think we're looking at a professional, organised infiltration machine. It's just happening too much, and the pattern is just too consistent for it to be random. You've been a Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.